Hey everyone, welcome back to Build and Tinker. Today I am going to discuss a new commander from Modern Horizons, Svyelun, if that's how you say it, of Sea and Sky. So she is a 1 blue legendary creature Merfolk god, and she has indestructible as long as you control at least 2 other Merfolk. When Svyelun attacks, you draw a card, and other Merfolk you control have Ward 1. So anything that targets your Merfolk will be countered, which is really kind of cool. And she gets indestructible as long as you have 2 out. So the strategy for this deck is going to be let's get 2 Merfolk out and try to always have at least 2 on the board, and then turn Svyelun into a bit of a Voltron type commander. So as usual, I am going to be walking through the cards I have in front of me. I have the separate piles like I usually do. So we have all the creatures, the equipment, and auras that we'll be using to kind of make her bigger. Ramp, basic support cards, removal, that such. Other creature support cards, just other general support for your deck. And then some draw. So I also have a stack of lands, which aren't terribly exciting to look at, but, you know, lots of lands. So let's get started. Right now, let's start with the basics. We'll start with ramp. So I actually have quite a bit of a couple of rocks in here. Nothing big, mono blue. You don't really need a whole lot, but a couple of pieces here. There's going to be a lot of card draw, so Thought Vessel is very good for that. Gilded Lotus is always good in any monocolor deck because you get it just for 5 rest of the game, or as long as it's on the field, rather. You get to tap it to add 3 mana of any one color, and adding 3 blue is always a good thing. It is a little bit more expensive at 5, but that's kind of useful. And then, of course, your classic Soul Ring there. On the land side, just a couple of basic lands here that I have. Myriad Landscape, try to get me a couple of extra basics out on the field. Soaring Sea Cliff is cool because it kind of fits with that Voltron theme. You can kind of make Svyelun flying when it ETBs. So that's kind of cool. Just anyway, it does come in tapped. It's kind of a downside, but I don't have very many lands in here that come in tapped. Seat of the Synod is just an artifact land. Nothing really special there. No real reason other than I had it. And then Mystic Sanctuary, when it enters the battlefield untapped, you may put target instant sorcery card from graveyard on top of your library. And that happens if you control 3 or more islands. So as you saw at the pile before, going to have quite a few islands out there for us that we want to use. So that should actually be coming in untapped almost all the time. Let's move to card draw. So your commander, as you can see on the screen, has card draw of its own on itself. So that makes it pretty easy to draw cards on a regular basis. If you're attacking with her, you will be attacking quite a bit with a deck like this. But obviously, you don't want to just rely on your commander because it can be removed. It has indestructible if you have 2 of the Merfolk, and it's going to be harder to remove those off the board. So you get some value there. But we do want some card draw in here. And I have a lot of the basics in here. We'll start with Preordain, Brainstorm, Opt. Keep Safe is kind of fun because not only is it a counter spell that targets a permanent you control, but it's draw a card. So that helps with those exile cards that are going to try to hit Svyelun. You can kind of counter that. Or if they do one of your Merfolk and willing to pay that one, you can counter it and draw a card. We have Piracy Charm. This one kind of does double duty here. Target player draws a card. That's why it's in the card draw pile. And then the other piece it does is it gives a target creature island walk until end of turn. I'm going to try to make this a bit more clearer if I can. Is that the wrong way? That may be about as good as I can get it. All right, we'll go with that. Piracy Charm. It also gives your creature island walk, like I mentioned, or +2/-1 to on the turn. Svyelun's a 3/4, so any extra damage is going to be fine. The -1 won't do a whole lot because she'll be indestructible. So you kind of get some value there and kind of pick and choose when you want to play that card. Leadership Vacuum, always good in Commander. Came out in C19. Basically, a target player returns each commander they control from the battlefield to the command zone. So it helps get around the indestructible, the hexproof, any of those kind of commanders because you're targeting the player. And they have to get to the command zone, so they have to pay command tax when they get that out. Plus, you draw a card. So litter protection there. And then Serum Visions, draw a card, scry 2. Pretty fun. Kind of the opposite of Opt, which is scry 1, draw a card. or rather, I'm like the opposite of Preordain, which is scry 2, then draw a card. Crashing Tide is another cool one that synergizes with the Merfolk, because if you have a Merfolk, it has Flash, and you return target creature to its owner's hand, and you draw a card. So it replaces itself, it removes something off the field. Kind of anything you can do there to get some value out of it's going to be good. So some basic card draw, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sources, plus the commander is a card draw itself, plus you'll see a lot of the Merfolk themselves have card draw. All right, let's get into the removal. So kind of the other staple we have here. So this is kind of broken into a couple of different areas here. It's mostly counter spells with a couple of unique pieces here. So if you watch my other videos, you know I love these modal dual face cards, because not only can I have as a counter spell, I need land, I can flip it and get a land. It does come in tapped, but not really too big of a deal. Not a counter spell, obviously counter spell, cancel, Force of Will. I actually found this in an old box. It's the old Champions edition, so I just kind of threw it in a deck for fun. Not tournament legal, but good enough for the play group at the store. Thought Collapse. You get a counter target spell, and the controller puts the top 3 cards of the library in the graveyard. Not really a big deal, but gives you some protection. Vapor Snag. They, return target. Oh, this is a return target spell. And Familia's Ruse, as additional cost, you return a creature you control to its owner's hand, and you counter target spell. Really only in there because of the cost. You're not really going to want to be returning creatures to your hand too much, especially if you only have 2 other Merfolk. But if you need to, you can, and it might just kind of save the game there. And then I have 3 other ways to clear the way for blockers. Unsubstantiate, Unsummon, and Vapor Snag. Unsubstantiate actually does a creature or a spell to its owner's hand, so that's kind of cool. And then Unsummon returns it to its hand, and Vapor Snag will return it to its owner's hand. So this gets around, commanders, it gets around Indestructible, not hexproof, but you can at least get your commander through for some of that damage. All right, before we get into the Merfolk, let's talk about some of the support cards, because we're going to want a lot of support with here. And I mentioned that I have card draw in a number of ways. Kindred Discovery, fantastic card in any sort of tribal deck. So you choose a creature type. When a creature of the chosen type enters the battlefield or attacks, you draw a card. Brilliant. It costs 5, a little expensive, but good late game way to kind of keep refilling your hand, especially if you're going to cast several Merfolks that turn. More card draw here. Reconnaissance Mission. When a creature you control does combat damage to a player, draw a card. It has cycling too, so if you can't quite get it out, you just need the card draw. You can cycle it. But more importantly, you're going to want to be attacking with your commander, and the fact that it's unblockable, they won't throw a lot of things in front of it, or sorry, indestructible. They won't want to throw a lot of things in front of it, so you might be able to get around some of that and get that damage in. And then Military Intelligence, whenever you attack with 2 or more creatures, draw a card, because you will have several creatures on here. So now that we have the card draw, how are we going to get through with some evasion? Levitation, 2 and 2 blue, creatures you control have flying. And of course, Wonder. When it's in your graveyard, they have flying, if you control an island, which you will because it's a blue deck. So 2 more ways to give all your creatures flying. Flying Merfolk is always fun. And then a couple of other ways to get some protection out here. Kalefi, Beloved of the Sea. So the power is equal to your Devotion to Blue. Not really important. It's the other piece. Creatures and enchantments you control have spells your opponents cast to target this permanent cost 1 more to cast. So with this and the commander out, anything that targets a Merfolk is going to have to deal 2 extra mana. So 1 to pay for Kalefi and then 1 to pay for the ward, which is really cool. And then Aquatic Incursion is the last one. When it enters the battlefield, you create 2 1/1 blue Merfolk creature tokens with hexproof, and you can pay 3 in a blue, and target Merfolk can't be blocked this turn. Again, more evasion for your commander. But more importantly, this card alone will get you the 2 Merfolk you need to make your commander indestructible. So fun cards there. Covered all these. Now we get into the giant stack of Merfolk we have here. So I ordered these in terms of mana value. So we have a lot of 1-cost Merfolk here. I won't go through all of them, but there's some very cool ones here. So this one has Island Walk. You can tap a land. Tapping a land is probably not a fun thing to do. Unblockable. Tidal Warrior is pretty cool because target land becomes an island until end of turn. So you can use this to muck with a lot of lands and just kind of make it an island whenever you need to. Or if you can get Island Walk on, that's even better. Tide Shaper, very similar thing. If you kick it, so it kind of costs 2 if you kick it, but It gets +1/+1 as long as an opponent controls an island, and if it was kicked, target land becomes an island until it leaves the battlefield. So kind of some cool stuff here. Mistcaller, kind of a little bit more protection there as well. Until end of turn, if a non-token creature went into the battlefield and it wasn't cast, exile instead, get around some of that cheating out as you want to, especially if it's already on the field. So get those guys out quickly. These 2-cost ones we want to get out quickly as well. And they kind of just do a number of things. Merfolk Trickster has flash. Target creature, tap target creature and opponent controls. It loses all abilities until end of turn. So kind of a fun way to shut down somebody's commander if you need to at the last minute. Another deal damage, Whiptide Pilferer. When it deals damage, that player discards a card. Okay, draw a card, discard a card on the looting. This one has flying if you control the Merfolk, which you will because your commander is one. So you get a little flying Merfolk there. Pay 1 in a blue, draw a card, and discard a card. If you have 4 or more card types among cards in my graveyard, 3 in a blue, you just draw a card. And yeah, this one gets you instant sorcery, and this one draws a card when it ETBs, but you have to reveal a Merfolk, which should be pretty easy to do with about 33 Merfolk in the deck. Now we're getting into some more expensive ones. You won't be casting probably more than one of these a turn if you're trying to get your commander out, which are the 3-cost ones. We have some big hitters here, though. We have True Name Nemesis. So, if you know the other blue player or a black player, you can kind of get some protection there and keep getting in for damage off of him. Hull Breacher, just straight up mean, but very useful if you have it. If not, really kind of any Merfolk can sit in here. Merfolk Sovereign is a great little lord. Other Merfolk get +1/+1. Tap it. Target Merfolk creature is unblockable this turn. So if you get this guy out, not only is your commander bigger, it's going to get in for damage every single turn. Library Larcenist, when he attacks, you draw a card. Very similar. And Scroll Thief, he has to deal combat damage, but you can draw a card. You kind of see quite a bit of card draw in here, and maybe even some ramp with Hull Breacher on here. Keep going here to the 4-cost. Again, getting a bit up there in power now. Everybody's favorite Talrand. You're just going to get some Drakes out. Just incidental value is a Merfolk, so that's fun. Merrow Levitator can give another Merfolk flying. So what's cool there is you can give your commander flying, play a blue spell, untap it, give another Merfolk flying, kind of keep doing that. Another draw 3 cards, put 2 cards you hand on the library, top of the library, kind of a little brainstorm there on Merfolk. If you tap another untap rogue, this guy can't be blocked. You don't have a lot of rogues in here, mostly wizards. Merfolk apparently are a lot of wizards. So you can get that, but another deals damage. You draw a card, but if you can get a rogue, you can get the damage through. And then this guy can't be blocked. And when he enters the battlefield, you return a creature you control to its owner's hand. So if you've been given a creature, that's useful. Or if you want to get one of these other ETBs again, like Riverwise, you can kind of bounce it back to your hand. Just be careful there because your commander might lose Indestructible if you're not watching out. And then lastly, we have our 5-cost. Nothing over this deck in this deck costs more than 5 mana. Windrider Patrol. When it deals combat damage, you scry 2, and it's got flying. Prowess, you can return target and sorcery to your hand. Again, good to recur some of that card draw. Another Island Walker. Look at the top 4 cards of the library, then put them back in any order. Sage of the Falls. When it or another non-human creature ETBs, you may draw a card. If you do discard a card, Merfolk are not human. So anytime you cast a Merfolk, you're going to get there. And of course, Umera Wizard is one of those modal dual face cards that I really like that you can get as a creature. And when you cast a sorcery, instant, or wizard spell, again, wizard. The commander's a wizard, commander's a god rather. You saw the number of wizards we have over here. A lot of wizards. This guy will get flying, but ultimately, if you need to early in the game, you can flip it and get the land out of it instead. So yeah, that's pretty much it. It's a pretty simple deck. I threw this thing together in about an hour. Just kind of pulled out a bunch of Merfolk, kind of looked at which ones had the best mana value I wanted to. Knew that I kind of wanted to go a little bit of a Voltron type strategy because Indestructible is always going to be good, and that you're going to be wanting to attack with Svyelun because of that draw card ability. It's just going to constantly give you some value. So let me know. Leave me a comment. Subscribe to the channel. Shoot us an email. Follow us on Twitter, MTG Build Tinker, and let us know what you think. Thanks for listening.